I'm Terry David Mulligan, and this is Mulligan Stew, CKUA Radio, and the Mulligan Stew podcast. I'm talking to a friend and a fellow podcaster, Steve Dawson, who I saw a lot in Vancouver, and then he went to Nashville, Tennessee, and I see him. I follow him. I check out the podcast. I watch the projects that he's working on. So it takes a while to gather myself and go, "Oh, we got to talk." So this is it. It's April 1st. Happy April Fool's Day. I was going to try to tell you a Keith Moon April Fool's joke that he played, but I'll leave it for another show.
Oh, I'd like to hear that.
Well, he had piranhas in the bathtub in the Hotel Georgia. That was the start. That's the start of the story.
In Vancouver?
In Vancouver, yes. He wanted to figure out, he didn't know what to feed them. I'm sure he killed them within half a day.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Here's the reason why we're talking. A, to stay in touch, and B, because you have dates coming.
I do.
You're coming back to the secondary markets, and but also you have 3 albums. You know,
I do.
In the last year, calendar year, Gone Long Gone, Phantom Threshold with the Telescope 3, and just now, Eyes Closed, Dreaming, which, if I'm not mistaken, is a Ian Tyson lyric.
That's right. Yeah, it's a lyric from Long Time to Get Old.
Yeah. So we'll cover those grounds if it's okay with you. I had a chance to do an interview with Tedeschi Trucks Band because they did that remarkable feat of releasing 4 albums in the course of the last summer.
They sure did.
Because they had time to do it, and because the pandemic was about, and they could get together one way or another, physically or on the internet, and actually make music that way. You went through the same process because you're a guy that wants to be in the studio bumping elbows with your musician friends and your vocalists or whatever. So we all had to sort of reimagine how long did it take to actually realize that you could connect yourself comfortably with the people you wanted to play with?
It took a while. For me, I was on tour when the whole thing happened and came back. We were out with Birds of Chicago. We were playing with the Wood Brothers, and we were sort of mid-tour coming up the West Coast and got sent home in the middle of that. And I remember saying to Jono, who's the drummer from the Wood Brothers, he's in Nashville. We got off the plane. I was like, I'm actually kind of looking forward to like 2 weeks off. So that's where we were at that point. And then, everything happened. And so right away at the very beginning, I had some projects looming with a couple Albertans, actually, one with Cat Dancer and one with John Hannum. Right. And those, I was trying to not have to cancel those because we still didn't know what was happening. And I kind of we just kind of strung those along. They were happening in like May and June, I think. They were booked, like the studios were booked, and I just really didn't want to cancel all that good work that I had coming up. So I just kept like hoping COVID would go away or something. And then when we finally realized that wasn't going to happen, everything got canceled, of course. And then it was pretty quickly after that. So probably around May, like a couple months of just like kicking around, wondering what the hell was happening. And then I pretty quickly was talking. The main thing that happened was I was talking with Gary Craig, drummer in Toronto. And he's a good friend. We've done a lot of work together, and he's got a condo in the east side of Toronto with some pretty understanding neighbors. And he was like, yeah, I got this set up here, and maybe we could do some stuff. And so we started talking, and I looked at his setup, and we started talking about how we could improve it and make it so that it was really
sure
a strong thing that he could do. And that came together. And then I had a friend, Jeremy Holmes, in Vancouver, who's played on all my stuff in the last bunch of years. and he's easier to get set up. It's easier for a bass player to record than it is for a drummer. And so pretty quickly we had a little unit going, and that's what we did during the pandemic. Was we had, that was called the Henhouse Express, and we had this whole thing going where people could send us a track of them singing, and we would do a song recorded and mixed for them within a week. And we did over 100 songs like that, and we eventually got back some of that work that we'd lost doing those records with Cat Dancer and John, which we ended up doing that way. And I had started enjoying the process, and at that point started writing too, and that's how I started to record my own stuff. I didn't set out to make 3 records, that's for sure.
No, and I know that you have exacting standards of yourself. You're trying to up the bar every time. There's no just, it's okay. It's got to be up there. Yeah. And so once you figured out that you could stay up there at that level that you wanted to work at, then things started to fall into place. So you have 3 albums.
Yeah.
And you had to, I think I read somewhere that you had almost recorded everything at the same time. Once you set it in motion, you just kept recording. I know you switched off, of course, with the second album because you're doing pedal steel.
Yeah.
The first one, well, I'll let you describe it. The first one's different from the last one, but what are those differences? There's covers in the third one.
Yeah, it's more, I sort of think of it as slightly more traditional, I guess, in some ways, but I don't know if that's accurate or not. Just in my mind, that's the way I think about it. Yeah, it just kept going. Like I had songs, and then I started co-writing with Matt Patershuk from Northern Alberta. We're good friends, and we started doing this like collaborative long distance thing that really worked for me and for him. And so we suddenly had all this material. That's when the pedal steel stuff came. Is like I had that record kind of like a half written kind of, I guess, at that point. And I just saw it sitting there, and I thought, well, I might as well get this thing going too. And so that's how that happened. And yeah, just working with Jeremy and Gary all the time. And then the other guy that hopped into the mix was Jay Bellerose. He's a drummer that he plays people, like he does all the T-Bone Burnett stuff, and he's out with Robert Plant in his band now. And he's a friend.
Yeah.
Wonderful, crazy drummer, like very unique. And so I contacted him, and I was like, what are you up to? And he's like, well, me and my wife, his wife plays bass. It's like, we've set this situation up in our living room. And he started sending me pictures. And it was like the drums were in the middle of their living room. And then they had a like a patio umbrella that they brought in from the outside and put it over the drums to sort of like, put like a bit of a baffle around them or whatever. And then he's invested in really nice microphones. And so she started engineering for him, and she hated it. So she hated doing it, but she's like, okay, I'm going to do this, and this is going to be a thing. And so they started doing tracks for me. And, so I was sending tracks to him as well. And some of the stuff was more suited to his playing than to Gary's. And so I would just sort of make those decisions and send them off. And I was getting tracks back every day from amazing people. And it was
fantastic.
Yeah.
You wake up to new music.
Yeah.
The thing about it is with you and Matt Patershuk, we love a lot at CKUA, a lot. Everybody plays them. Sometimes it's the riff that determines what the song is. Sometimes it's the words, and you're a riff master. He's a word master. So did you just meet in the middle? How did that mix happen?
It was a different process for different songs, but for the most part, I mean, sometimes I just pilfered his lyrics. Like he would send me like 12 sets of lyrics and just say like, hey, here's some stuff, have at her. Because he was busy or just whatever, and he had this backlog of stuff. So he'd send me these handwritten pages that were like scanned, and they were kind of all over the place. And so I would go through those. And so there was a few songs that are on the new record and the first record that were like that. They were just like, I was looking through the lyrics and finding things that I thought were interesting. And I would work music up around those lyrics, which for me was a cool way to work. I'm not used to working that way. And then other times I would have a song kind of like half written or even one line written, but the music was written, but the lyrics weren't. And I would send him the music, and then he would write lyrics for that.
In many cases with the wrong people, it wouldn't work. but
Yeah,
you have a
yeah.
dialogue, right? You have a dialogue going on. Gone Long Gone, loved it. Dimes and Bad Omen, I played quite a bit. Love the fact that Matt's in there. The Gone Long Gone, the title track, kind of reminded me of, in its own way, early Gordon Lightfoot. There was such something about it. Ooh La La.
Sure.
I'm a Faces fan.
Sure, you are. Yeah.
I'm a big. Interviewing them was tough because they were gooned.
Oh, really? That doesn't surprise me.
Ron Wood and Ronnie Lane. And by the way, today, April the 1st, is Ronnie Lane's birthday. He was born April the 1st, 1946.
Wow, there you go.
Ronnie Lane, Ron Wood, and Ooh La La, which still, it was a throw-off song. They admitted it, but it's still being recorded and played, and it's wonderful. A Phantom Threshold and the Telescope 3. I love Brushy. I love it for the countdown. I was going to love the track 4 bars in. I was going to love this track. It's fantastic. I'm getting to the new one just a second. It's the count in. It's the pedal steel. Long time to get old. Ian Tyson song, bringing it back. Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. That tune was kicking around for a while in my head because we'd done at the Vancouver Folk Fest in probably 2017 or 18. I'd played there, and I did a thing with Corblund and somebody else. There was like 3 or 4 of us on stage, and it was all, we were doing Ian Tyson songs, and that was one. I can't remember if I'd sort of come up with it or if somebody had said, hey, you should do this song for that thing. But anyway, we did this show, and I've sort of been playing that song ever since. So it was fun to actually record it.
The Vancouver Folk Fest was down for the count.
Yeah.
But now back.
And now back.
They found their funding.
Yeah. I'll be there this year.
Any other festivals?
No Canadian ones.
Okay.
Except for Vancouver.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a great one to come back to.
Yeah.
The third album,
Yeah.
Eyes Closed, Dreaming. I love The Gift right off the top. I'm crazy about Hemingway. Is Hemingway talking to a swordfish? Well, who's in the? I'm watching it go by. I should have looked at the damn lyrics. I'm sorry, but I was trying to figure it out for myself. What's Mr. Hemingway doing?
Well, he's just sort of pontificating in a bar, and it's sort of implied that he's sort of drunk and lonely off in the corner and talking to whoever comes by, and there's a fish reference in there to a marlin.
Yeah.
And but he's not talking to a marlin. He's talking about a marlin.
I think the marlin's probably over top of the bar.
Yeah,
if it's any kind of a bar at all.
Yeah.
Anyway, I love Hemingway. Love that. I love Polaroid. I love the thoughts of Polaroid. I love The Gift. Singing the Blues.
Yeah,
of course, it's you. It's an instrumental.
Yes, that's an old Bix Beiderbecke tune actually, and I learned it via a Hawaiian guitar player named Saul Hoopy, and that's sort of my take on that version of that song.
John Hartford, have you ever met him, or did you meet him?
No, he died quite a few years before I moved to Nashville, and but I just think he's one of the greatest songwriters of all time. And it's funny, like everyone that I meet in Nashville that lives in Nashville and has lived here for a long time or was from here always has a John Hartford story, because he was just around a lot, and he was just such a strong personality and such a part of the music scene, but also just the city itself here, up until he died.
Let him go, mama. Is it about life on the road? Or the lure of the road, or the lure of music?
Sort of, but it's he was really into paddle wheeling, and he became a steamship captain on the Cumberland River, and lived right on the bluffs overlooking the Cumberland. And there's even a bend in the Cumberland River, which is the river that goes through downtown Nashville, and there's a bend in it called Hartford's Bend, and that's where all the captains used to blow their horn as they went by, and John would come out and play banjo for them, and he just loved that whole thing. And that song is sort of about just riding the steamboats and smuggling dope on the steamboats and stuff like that.
If you remember your ferry routes through the Gulf Islands, when you went through Active Pass, the ferries had to signal each other, even though they could see each other on radar. They had to do that horn coming into that pass. So that's our version of that, Active Pass.
Right. Exactly.
I love I've always loved Bobby Charles. Always loved him.
Oh my God.
And Small Town Talk is just one of those songs, man.
Yeah. I came late to the Bobby Charles party too, of course. Like, I never saw him or anything, but that record, the self-titled Bobby Charles one, it's kind of the only one I know. He's got some other ones, but I've never really heard them, or if I've heard them, they didn't really stick with me for some reason.
I think he had a hand in See You Later, Alligator.
Okay.
I could be wrong.
Yeah.
I thought he was one of the guys in there. But Small Town Talk, well done. I'm going to play that one.
All right.
I love The Long Time to Get Old, Ian Tyson. Saying there was, I'll get over these tracks in just a second. COVID. It was a curse and a blessing. For some people, it was a full-time curse. But I think that two groups of people that I deal with made well with it. One were the winemakers, because the vines didn't give a damn what was going on. They were still growing.
That's right. Still
sunshine, still okay. If you were careful, you could still make wine. And we were buying wine by the cases.
We were.
Who nobody knew where the end was.
Yeah.
The other thing is the blessing is for you, an artist. Mm-hmm. You can hunker down and make music. You can still be creative with it, as long as the dread doesn't get into the room.
Yeah, even with the dread in the room, it kind of fed some things that I think wouldn't have been there otherwise. You know, I don't know if that sense of dread really dissipated until much later in the whole process. But you know, some days I just couldn't do anything because it was too crazy and we didn't know what was happening, and it was just too hard to think about making a living or whatever. But yeah, for the most part, I found it to be a really creative time, and I look back on it kind of weirdly fondly in some ways, because it was, you know, unlike any other time in anyone's life, really, and just being able to do things for long stretches of time that there's no way I would have been able to do otherwise.
Your friendship with Allison Russell has paid such heartwarming dividends. You didn't enter into this friendship for those reasons. You were just friends and you liked each other in the studio. It worked out well.
Yeah. She lives about 3 houses down from me here in Nashville. And we knew each other in Vancouver when she first moved there. She was about, I don't know, 17, 18, 19 in there. And we crossed paths a lot in the Vancouver music scene. And then we didn't for quite a long time, because she was out with Poe Girl, and they were touring like maniacs for years and years, and she was kind of never around. So I just never saw her again. And then about 10 years ago, we reconnected at a Folk Alliance conference. And just after that, a couple of years later, they needed a guitar player for Birds of Chicago, and I jumped in and started playing with them, and that became like a full-time gig for 2 or 3 years. And I don't know if it would have kept going. Like, it's hard to know, but the whole thing with Allison and her crazy career trajectory over the last couple of years, I don't know what would have happened, honestly, if COVID hadn't happened, because with Birds of Chicago, that band just was never going to stop. It seemed like it was just like constantly on the road.
Well, she has turned a corner.
Yeah.
She's blown her own whistle. She's hit the whistle. She's her life has changed for the good, I hope. All for the good.
Dramatic. Yeah.
I'm just looking at it. I got to get to your podcast. Hold on a second. What did I write down? Oh, Allison. I'm my own editor, I guess you can tell. The splitting up of the songs.
Yeah.
How long did it take you actually to find what went into what album?
Well, the middle album was really easy because that was all the pedal steel instrumental stuff. So that just went into a clump right in the middle. And that was always sort of intended to be its own record. So that was fine. And then the other two, I just kind of went by feel. I think I did a couple like random take song titles and put them on little pieces of paper and throw them on the floor and see what happened. And then at some point there was some thread in my mind that sort of led me down to where I got them to. But sequencing a record is hard, and the more records that I've made, the more I realize that it's totally random. And while it seems like kind of a big decision, I've stopped really giving much weight to that decision. So I make those decisions pretty quickly now. And I don't know. I never really know. I don't know what people are going to like. I don't know what they're not going to like. So I don't really think about it too much. And so in this case, there was a fair bit of randomness. And then I looked at the list in some way and just thought, made a few tweaks and just thought for whatever reason that I felt good about that
And if
particular.
we'll just stop asking you questions about it, it'll be okay. It'll just play. They are what they are. That's right.
Yeah, there's a few things that I wanted to spread out. Like there's a couple of Hawaiian songs on the new record, and there was one on the first record, and I wanted those things to tie into each other. And the song Gone Long Gone in my mind ties into Hemingway thematically sort of, but also instrumentally. They both have a string quartet on them. And those things, I wanted to break them up rather than put them together.
I have two friends actually I have three friends in Nashville. Colin Linden.
Sure.
I mean, do you bump into each other at gigs? Do you see each other?
I don't see Colin much, but I do see him occasionally. Like I'll run into him at the coffee shop, or I'll run into him at a gig sometimes. I think I go out more than he does because I don't see him at a lot of gigs, but I go to quite a few these days. But yeah, I mean, I see him around once in a while.
And my other friend is Jason Priestley, who left Los Angeles to live in Nashville, and he loves it. He's crazy about Nashville.
Oh, why did he move to Nashville?
Well, it was just the whole tax situation in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I can.
And he loved the town. He loved the town. He loved the place.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And if you've settled in, is there any conversation in your mind about coming back one day, or you're going to stay there? Or are you it?
Well, we moved during COVID too. So we moved we were in South Nashville, sort of halfway to Franklin, which is 20 miles south of town. And then we moved over to East Nashville in the middle of COVID for a bunch of reasons. But so we're settled in here now and we really like it. And I don't see any signs of leaving here in the next while. But I would imagine at some point in a bunch of years, we'll end up back in somewhere in Canada, maybe BC.
Okay. By the way, I owe you a thank you for Wicked Grin. It's the last time that we actually sat down and had a real conversation. And you turned me on. You reminded me of that album.
It's such a great record.
The Tom Waits.
Yeah.
What an amazing, and I still play it to this day. I go looking for it and I play it, and I think of you as I play it.
All right. Yeah. Good to be associated with that record. I think that's one of the greatest records ever made.
Truly. And should get played more, which is why I do it. Any plans to do now? Let me ask you about touring, because you can solo. You can solo all you want. Are you going to bring bands with you on this tour you're going to do?
Yeah, my band will be with me. We're called the Hooded Mergansers, which
I know it. But my dad was a game warden. I know what Hooded Merganser is. That's fantastic. He would try to teach me how to do the love call of a Hooded Merganser.
So that name was actually from Penticton, from the bar that's attached to that casino that's down the road from the Dream Cafe. Do you know that place?
Yeah.
And so that's, in fact, I think we've had a glass of wine there. I think you and I maybe.
And you would have to explain to every person who ever does an interview with it what a Merganser is. But anyway, what a Merganser is fantastic. Who's in the band?
Well, it's a little bit revolving. Like lately, it's been Joaquin Cooter on drums, Jeremy Holmes on bass, Daryl Havers on keys. Joaquin has some family stuff that he's dealing with right now and can't come. So, my friend Liam McDonald is playing drums, and he's a great drummer from Vancouver. And so it'll be the four of us: me, Liam, Jeremy Holmes on bass. Jeremy's going to play some mandolin too, and Daryl Havers, who's a killer organ and piano player.
Okay. Dates. April the 20th, start at Dream Cafe, yes, in Penticton, which was a great room when I was there, living there. But somebody's done the rebooking, and it's a great lineup of people going through that room.
There's a lot of stuff going through there again. A lot of stuff going through.
Every night there's something going through.
Yeah.
Well, I like that commitment. So April the 20th, Dream Cafe in Penticton. April the 21st, the Rogue in Vancouver.
Yeah, haven't played.
Now, here's the one, the 28th, the First Church of Christ something Victoria.
Yeah.
Are you religious, or was it just a room?
No, it's just a venue. I don't know why. So there's a promoter that I work with a lot in Victoria. She's great, and we used to do this show at a like a community center there, and the community center was not doing shows during COVID or after COVID, so she found another venue, and it was this church downtown Victoria. That's awesome. It's like it's a round room, and it sounds amazing in there. So we're playing there again.
See you at sound check.
Okay.
May the 4th in Edmonton at the Avery.
Yeah.
And May the 5th at Festival Hall in Calgary. Have you added any other dates?
There's the 3rd in Saskatoon at the Basement, which is the jazz club there. And I think that's it. Oh, there's a show in Chilliwack at Bazzini's.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. There you go. Well done, and welcome back.
Thank you.
Now, tell me about the podcasting.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I remember doing an interview with Lyle Lovett. It was in the lobby of the Orpheum, and the union guys didn't want us doing interviews in their lobby. So they brought out 5 or 6 vacuum cleaners and did the circus around us. We just kept talking. And I remember I said, songwriting, how long did it take you to find that? And he said, when I was a student in university, I went to the college radio and said, I'd like to do a show about songwriting, and I'm going to only interview Texas songwriters. Mm-hmm. And he said, and that's how I learned how to write music. I did that show so I could talk to all the great Texas songwriters and find out what their tricks of the trade and how they worked and things like that. So you're podcasting and you're talking to all of these other musicians. Have things spun out of that? Have lights gone off just about information that you heard and just ways of doing things and stuff?
Oh yeah, for sure. Everything from like direct information that I've learned from people about the process of making records to just how their careers went in certain ways that you wouldn't expect. That's been an interesting thing. And then also like things have definitely come out of it, like, whether it's production work, I've worked with some people from around the world that I'm sure came about through the podcast, because I didn't know them beforehand. And just getting into conversations with people that listen to the show and talking about what they're doing, and all kinds of things have come out of it. It's also how I've hooked up with a lot of people that I play with, like Jay Belleros and Joe Henry and people like that have become friends, all sort of started from interviewing them in the first place. And for me, like I've had some really memorable conversations, and talking with people like David Lindley, or especially when people pass away too, and you realize like one of the most in-depth interviews that they gave in their career was with you. That was a thing I realized with when Lindley passed a couple of weeks ago. There's not a ton of interviews out there with him, and certainly no long ones except for the one that I did. And it's interesting to have those things as memories for me, but also just for other people to be able to hop in and listen to whenever they want as well.
I can tell you this because you know Vancouver. I did an interview either the day of the show at the Queen Elizabeth or the morning after the Queen Elizabeth Theater. And David's standing there in his LA shoes and light gear, and it's dead winter. I said, "How do you like Vancouver winters?" And he said, "Heavy suckage, heavy suckage." And I liked him a lot. And he gave me an album of the Lindley Jackson Browne family in the Vienna Opera House. And when I opened it up, I realized that he was asking $20 for each of these albums to pay for costs and whatever. And so years later, I got to hand a $20 bill at the end of the festival. He said, "That's a Canadian 20. I need an American 20. He's a wonderful man, and such a huge loss. Such a huge loss.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, and I'll let you go. One is the Nashville that you thought you were moving to, the one that we know that has that great profile, and the Nashville that you know now. Are they different?
Yes and no. Like everything that you hear about Nashville is pretty true, I would say. You know, there's a lot of history here. There's a lot of respect for the history here. There's a lot of the people that were involved in the history here still here. You know, the parts that are less exciting are the condos going up everywhere and the things being torn down and stuff. But there's, unlike Vancouver, there is a level of respect for the past here that has prevented the utter destruction of the city, which is nice. You know, people, and a lot of that has come from private people stepping up and just being like, "No, we're not going to tear this amazing historical site down. I'm going to buy it instead, and I'm going to do whatever I want with it."
Sure.
You know, in the case of recently, that was a guy that bought RCA Studio A, which is Chet Atkins's studio, and they were going to tear it down and build condos. And some guy bought it and turned it over to Dave Cobb, and he's done pretty well there. So, let that happen here, and that's what didn't happen in Vancouver. Is all those so many historical places and also music venues got torn down and just forgotten about. But here it's a little different. And the tourism thing here is one side of the city that people see when they come here, but really like the actual music scene that you have to dig a little deeper for is pretty incredible here, and it's pretty great to be a part of it.
Kidding. Here's the last thing, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but have you thought about, of these 3 albums, which tracks you will take on stage with you when you tour? Which ones are absolutely positively going to be played?
I'm gonna play Old Brushy for you. I'm gonna bring my pedal steel, which I don't always do. So I know we're gonna do 3 or 4 songs off Phantom Threshold. Okay. We're gonna do a bunch of stuff. We'll definitely do like Long Time to Get Old, and we'll do a Gift, and we'll do Hemingway and stuff like that off the new record. And we'll do probably 3 or 4 off Gone Long Gone. We may do Ooh La La, but we'll definitely do like Small Town Talk, and we'll do a Gift and The Owl, and a bunch of new stuff. And not My Baby Left Town on the 219. No, although I have done that in the past. Maybe
that's all, man.
Yeah.
I also noticed that there's people populate your songs. Blind Joe, Angeline, Casey's Revenge, Keith Lowe, Chris Jetson, Caballeros, J.R. Lockley, Blind Thomas, Delia, Rose, Riley, King. Is it King Benny?
King Benny, yeah.
King Benny, and Hemingway. I mean, one of the names songs has to come with you, please. Have you got one? Which one would you play? Is it King Benny?
We'll play King Benny, yeah. So King Benny was one of the great Hawaiian guitar players of all time. A huge influence on me. King Benny Nawahi was his name, and he was the first blind guy to swim the English Channel. In fact, I don't know if anyone's done that since, but he did, and he was an amazing Hawaiian guitar player. And so that's a song, it's not in the Hawaiian style at all, but it's like about his life.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, nice to talk to you, man.
We spend our lives in our studios.
We do. We do. Yeah. I'm going to turn around here and go back to work now.
What are you mixing?
I'm mixing a Matt Pattershuk record, actually.
Nice.
Yeah, we just recorded here about 3 weeks ago. It was amazing. It was a great time.
And when will we play it at CKUA?
I'm not sure exactly. Probably like it'll be out in probably 4 or 5, 6 months, something like that.
Okay. Thank you for this. This is really cool. Happy April 1st. Watch the messages you get on the screen. And we'll look forward to seeing you. I'll see you in Victoria.
Fantastic. Great to see you.